Hey, fourth grade, we are going to finish up our nighttime winter scene picture today. If you have watercolors, you'll want to use those. If you don't have watercolors, I'm going to be showing you a little trick that you can do and use markers too. But I want you to watch because you're going to do kind of the same thing either way, whether you're doing it with markers or watercolor. You also want to find a white crayon, if you can, to add some little stars in the sky. This is going to create a wax resist for our watercolors. So what you're going to do is just put teeny tiny little dots. Make sure you're pushing hard and making some stars in the sky. You know, maybe one little X for a big star. Alright. Now we're going to try to keep the watercolors off of our mountains. So you're going to want to go slow when you're painting along those. And we're not going to paint this bottom part at all. So it's just the sky part. So be careful. Now the trick to doing this is using a lot of water and just a little bit of paint so that it's not too dark. And you're going to want to mix cold colors, okay? You can also add in some yellow so it looks like there's some lighter, you know, like Northern Lights stuff going on if you want. But what we're going to do is get a lot of water and we're going to do a section. And notice how I'm just putting water on here first. And I don't want this to dry out, so I'm not going to do too much. I'm going to get my brush really wet, get my paints wet, put some drops of water in there. Should have done that first. Whoops. Don't want to get my paints dirty. Alright, then I'm going to take some paint and I'm going to put it into my picture. And it's going to look light, rinsing between colors. And I'm going to let it kind of spread and mix on its own. Careful going along your edges. It's tricky along those mountain lines, right? Once you get one area done, rinse out your brush, add some more water. You can even use black in here too for really darker areas towards the top or the sides if you want. Okay, and it's just going to all blend together because you're using a lot of water. That's why you really want to make sure you have that construction paper underneath. So first I'm going to get it wet. See how it starts to mix into where I put that water on its own? Just be really careful. Do not lift up your paper until you have it all dried, okay? So I'm going to add in some purple in here. And you're going to kind of work fast with the water part, but just be careful along your edges. And just let those cold colors blend and mix together. Again, careful along your edges. Let it mix in and blend in. Rinse out your brush. Dip in some light colors. Okay. Now, as it dries, it's going to settle in. I'm going to spread that water around. And hopefully those little stars are going to come through as it dries. Usually, if we were doing this in class together, we would be adding on the stars later with white paint and doing some splatter paint and stuff with them, but we're just going to improvise for this one with stuff that we have at home. If you do have white tempera paint, you can always add that in. Alright, so I'm not going to finish the whole thing, but you can see here, I'm just kind of going to drop in more colors where I want them, and then just let it dry. Okay, so I'm not quite done, but I want to show you guys that marker technique, okay? So, you'll still need a paintbrush and some water, and then you'll need your markers. And I'm just going to show you off on the side here how you can use your watercolors, or I'm sorry, your markers like watercolors. So what you would do is color the whole thing, okay? So let's pretend that this is the top of my circle, right? And I'm going to bring in, and here's my mountain ridge here, okay? I would add in, you know, some greens where I wanted it, and purples. You can even add in blacks. Now it's not going to be exactly the same, but it'll still work. If you have a black, again, you can add that in for some darker areas. Okay. Maybe you want some yellow. We'll see how this turns out. Okay, and some more purple in here. Alright, I don't have to get every single white spot because it's going to mix. So then I would wash out my brush really good. Just get it wet, not too wet. And you're going to go on top of that and just get it wet. And it'll kind of mix and blend together. Again, it's not going to be the same. It's not going to work as good, but it's one way that you can kind of make your own watercolors if you don't have any. If you do have watercolors, I really want you to try this watercolor technique instead of doing the markers if you can. Just because it kind of works. It's not quite the same, right? Alright, so either way, I hope you guys have fun, and I cannot wait to see how they turn out. Remember though, let it dry. Do not pick this up until it's completely dry. I would just let it sit for like an hour. That should all soak in and be dry. Make sure there's no puddles before you try to pick it up and take a picture or anything. Alright, can't wait to see how these turn out, you guys. Have fun!